I've lived most of my life in a way that doesn't produce results. So doing something like YouTube or art is kind of hard. And since I wasn't happy with the amount of videos I was getting out, I decided to get some accountability. There's actually a bit to unpack. So here's what I learned for the past 7 days. So some stats. I made 7 videos, one for each day. So this gave me a total of 24 hours of working on videos and another 12 hours of art and thumbnails. This is probably my first time doing something for, a good amount of time that isn't video games. So this is cool. My starting times would start around 10 a.m. on the first day and then slowly drift to 2 p.m. And my ending times would almost exactly end at 9 p.m. every single day, which was my deadline. So why would I commit to something like this? My problem was that I had too much fear when making videos. Is this good enough? Or what will people think about this? And so in the past, I've set deadlines for myself, but the fear tends to come back in between the time gaps between deadlines because they're so far apart. So I wanted to try this concept called tactical stress. And essentially it's forcing yourself to grow by putting yourself in an environment where putting your all is what it takes to survive. Like putting a kid into a jungle where the only way to live is to learn and adapt. The feeling with this is like having a gun to your head and being forced to do something. When that happens, you can take advantage of the crazy amount of motivation. For me, that was setting deadlines, not weekly, but daily. The first thing I learned was that you can make a lot of progress in a short amount of time. Because you're forced to take action and set aside your fears, you can start to look at things objectively. For example, having to sit down and face the struggle of brainstorming at the start of a session was one of the hardest things for me to do. So to try to face this, I started putting together frameworks and templates for how I could organize my thoughts. That way, my brain could focus more on expressing rather than organizing the information. It's kind of like wanting to speak to a girl, but being too afraid of what she's gonna think of you, right? But once you actually start talking, you forget about that and start to become genuinely interested about them. I found this to be absolutely great because I could set aside my fear and could actually see so many things I could improve upon that the fear blocked before. And mostly it was things that I didn't actually know how to fix, but I could notice that it was wrong. I had no idea what to do about them, but it's cool to see the potential for growth, which is what a lot of people need. But without getting over this fear stage, for some reason, at least for me, the fear blocks out the opportunity to learn or see potential for learning. And although this allows me to see everything, another lesson that I learned is that it's hard to make progress past a certain point, because I really could only get myself to do the bare minimum. The time I spent per day and the starting times of each day slowly decreased over time. On day 3, I spent around 7 hours compared to the 4 hours I spent on day 7. Since the only criteria was to make a video, the quality of the video only went up to my lowest standard. Like in school, if I'm okay with a B- on my tests and I don't really like studying, I'll do just enough to get that B- based on what I've done in the past and how much I've studied in the past. So since I was able to make videos without crossing the deadline, I slowly started to procrastinate more and more because I knew I could make the deadline, right? If I wanted to get a higher quality video out, I would need to raise my standards for what kind of video I wanted to post. The parts that I was learning before seemed to be more about making the process of making a video easier and more efficient. But in terms of quality, there hasn't really been much improvement, except for the parts that efficiency allowed me to improve. Okay, I can kind of see a world where this works, where you can punish for not reaching a certain level of quality. But at this stage, I couldn't really get myself to push the quality level when the deadline is so close. Now that I've learned about, what it's like to have a gun at your head, I can kind of see the importance of switching from punishment to reward. So instead of being forced to get a video out, I want to feel good about working on one. Because apparently punishment is great for the short term, but it doesn't really work out in the long term. You can get extreme motivation from a gun, but only for so long, because over time the effect fades away. It's kind of like how you procrastinate on a test and fail. So you're like, I'll never procrastinate again. And then you do procrastinate because you forget the pain of failing the last test until it's too late, right? So instead, I want to find a way to be rewarded for the process. And I think the most efficient way to do this is to reward progress. Progress is already rewarding itself, but change my workflow so that progress is more evident, right? So the 7 days were honestly tough, but I could probably do it for a longer amount of time. So I do kind of feel like a pussy for opting out of this, but I'm going to be switching to 3 days between videos and see how that goes so I can separate the skills. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on right now. And I hope you can take something away from this.